Hello, this is Keith, and I'm going to share with you some of the techniques that I use when I create some of the digital artwork that I enjoy working on so much. I'm going to take you through some of the things I've already done to set this file up to get me kind of to this stage so far. Um, and then I'm going to try and take you through some of the ways that I work on top of these photos to create nice images or images that I really enjoy creating and I love to share with people. So the first thing I do is go in and do outlines for the basic shapes, the basic color blocks I've got here. I'll do the face or the skin, the facial hair, the hair on the head, mouth, eyes, things like that. Um, and what I like to do is think about building it from the skin out, almost if you were doing a wax model of someone. So again, the first thing I do is outline the face just with my pen tool. Then I go in and just block out the color, basically. And once I've done that, I'll adjust the opacity once I've got the color blocked out, so I can go in with my burn or dodge tools and do color adjustments and shade adjustments there. Also, I'll have a second layer that is the skin shadows. So I'll go in and you can see where I've masked that out. I'll go in and do that and do my masks for it, and then do blending and shading and things like that just to get that kind of smoothed out and basically roughed in. Also, you can see how I've done it here without the masks. You can see where I've gone in and just basically blocked out the rough hair shape or rough shades and tints for the hair. It's about kind of the way you see anime done, where you'll see like a really bright highlight. So you can see kind of how I've taken what's there and just kind of simplified it quite a bit, kind of posterized it. I'll do the same thing with the facial hair and features. So if you look at what I'm doing here, what I've done is I basically started with the way the hair is up here, and I've gone and blended the beard into the skin, the face. And the way I do that is I'll go in and grab a brush, just a real simple shape, just basically a simple shape like that. Get the color that I need. That's a brown. And this is just, I'm just going to show you an example because you can see I used all sorts of color here. I used a dark brown, a little bit of a lighter brown, but I'll go in and reduce the size of my brush. What I'll do is go in, and I want to have a size jitter. I just want the control to be based off the pin pressure from what I'm doing. I want the minimum diameter to be 0. So what that's saying is I'm telling Photoshop to go from the maximum diameter to the minimum, which is 0, when I lay down a stroke. So this is my hardest pressure here. That's my lightest pressure there. So that's how I'm doing this. So what I'll do is basically, you can see I've blocked in the color, and as you work our way around the image, you can see that what I do is just essentially try and think about how the hair grows, right? It kind of grows out and down. Now his beard in particular, his hair really going all over the place. If you look at it, in certain areas, he's kind of got hair. If you look right down here, he's got hair going just about everywhere. So I'm going to try my best to blend that out and represent that as well as I can in this as I work my way around. Additionally, I'm going in and adding a layer of just this fake hair to kind of add some texture to it so it looks a little bit more real. And the way I do that is in Photoshop, there should be a brush that is, well, I'll show you through here. Should be a brush that is like it basically looks like a single hair, or like a grass blade, or dune grass is what it's called. And that's what it looks like right there. What I'll do is use it, go in here to size jitter, and this, what I'm doing is adjusting that to say, okay, I want the size to go from 0 to this size. So as I move this across my palette, it adjusts that size from 0 up to 73%. Angle jitter, basically, you can look at the preview down here and you can see that basically that turns the pitch of my brush in different directions. And again, we're going for just kind of chaotic fill in here. So we're going to put it at, say, 20% to start with. We'll see what happens. Scattering. We want it to scatter a little bit. We don't want it fully scattered, but we want to scatter a little bit, so because we want some control. So we'll go up to there. Color dynamics, I really don't want to adjust that any. Transfer, I don't want any adjustments there. Brush tip shape, I want the spacing to be fairly far apart, again, so it looks like facial hair. Let me go in and make sure I've got the right layer selected. Yeah, so if I go down and I shrink this brush size down, so that's kind of what I'm looking at doing. So you can see what I'm going to do again is go in and add texture and shade to this. That's what I've done so far with it. So you can also see that I messed up here. Actually, put a couple of strokes there on my base layer. Didn't intend to do that, but it's not going to matter once we get to the final. But just in case, we're going to go in and touch it up. I'm going to blend it back out to where it should be. So let me do that here. Get my brush back to where it was. Go to soft round. Let's see, is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. So really, I'm just going to go in, and this is going to be very poorly done because I just need to fill the space here. So if I need to go back for any reason, I've got something here that I'm just kind of dabbing it in place. Again, this isn't to be final because it's a lot of adjustment on top of this. Okay, so again, that's how I'm going to go in and add a little bit of chaos to the beard. Turn that outer layer off now because you can see how uniform that looks, and we don't really want that. We want it to be a little bit more chaotic. So, like I was saying, I'll go in and add quite a few brush strokes like I was showing before. That's why, again, I did want the same layer again. I want to go up here. Boom, that guy. Okay. I don't want white, I want my brown. Again, I'm going to sample it. Let's see. I'm just going to sample like something kind of light. Let's see right there. Again, shape dynamics and a bit of pen pressure. So we go from 0 to 100. You see, that's kind of what my brush stroke's going to look like. I'm going to adjust down to about 1. And I want my intensity or opacity to be 100. So basically, I'm just going to go in with sand and kind of follow the direction of the beard along here. So that's one way that I can go in and blend all this together, right? So there's one way. All right, the other way I can do this, and something that I do frequently, and I'll do it when I get up to the hair on the head, is I'll use this tool, the smudge tool. And that's very handy for doing any type of hair because it does exactly what it says. It takes the color, and it's like you're sticking your finger in it and smearing it out or smudging it out. So I'm just going to go and use this tool. Again, I've got it set at about 95. The size jitter and everything's about the same. So I'm going to go in, and this adjusts how, basically the amount of pressure you're giving to it, or the strength that you're smudging with. So I'll go to 96, 95, something like that. And just really go in and vary the sizes as I need to. If I need to rotate the canvas, I'll do that. But I'll basically just go in here and do this over and over and over until I get an irregular edge, again, because we don't want his beard to look like a cartoon. And the more you do this, it's a little bit tedious, but the more you do it, the more real your hair will be. And again, hair is interesting to do because as you look at it, it's got, again, different tones and shades throughout. Again, something really good to observe is how anime does it. How they'll shade and tint hair. They'll be very basic about it, but I'll actually show you with this layer here what's going on with this smudge tool, so you can see how I go through this and how it can be very helpful for blending in two different colors and adding a lot of realism to it. So I'm going to go through and work on the beard, get it done, and then we're going to move into the hair so you can see how I do that. So I'll cut my audio and just record me doing what I'm going to do with the beard. I'll speed it up as well so that it won't take long, but you'll know exactly kind of what I'm doing. And what you'll see is me swapping and the smudge tool frequently, and also when I swap from my brush, I'll be masking it out some by using a layer mask, just so I can take pieces away that I feel like I don't need, but it's not destructive. So if I need to go back and erase parts of the mask, you know, the actual color is still there. So that's what I'm going to do. Hang out and watch me work through that. Okay, so what I'm getting ready to do, I've already completed pretty much putting all the brush strokes on the beard that I wanted to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going in and I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. I've got a little bit too much red, too much brown in there, so I'm going to desaturate a little bit so it matches his natural hair color a little bit more. So I'm going to go in and do that. I'll adjust the lightness back a little, make it a little bit darker, and then reduce the saturation. I think that looks good. And now I'm just going in here and I'm gonna basically mask out some of these extra strokes that I don't want because it's a little bit strong in certain areas, like especially back here where his jaw is. Basically, I'm just trying to look and compare to see where I've got it too thick and where I need to lighten it up and things like that. So I'm kind of popping back and forth between the layer and what the actual photo is, so I can kind of see what's going on with it. So I've got the skin layer back on now, so I'm going to go in here and see what I can do to make some adjustments. Let's see. Grab a soft brush, and what I'm going to do now is really just kind of try and gently fade out some of the areas that I don't need, like where I've just really overstroked it some. So just really going in here and masking it out so that it still has a nice soft edge, so it looks like actual facial hair, you know, coming over, but we don't want it coming over the crest of the lip, because, you know, hair doesn't grow out of the lip, hopefully. And so that's what I'm doing right here. It's just kind of isolating that a little bit more, making sure that's going to be nice and free when we get to that part of it, so we can add a little bit of shine and some highlight to the lip, because that's part of what you see anytime somebody has facial hair. You know, you notice that bottom lip a little bit more. What I'm doing now is just kind of, again, defining the end of the nose, because that hangs over, obviously, and it's going to give us more depth in the final image. Let me zoom back some and see what I got here. Okay, it's coming along. Yeah, I think that beard's about where we want it to be. Now it looks really nice. I've got a kind of a rogue stroke there on the end of the nose, but again, I'm going to kind of pop back and forth to see what I've got in the actual photo and what we've done. I'm going to need to make a couple of more adjustments here. What I'd actually like to do now, I'm going to go ahead and start on the eyebrows. Try and add the dimension and depth to those guys. And I'm going to treat it very similar to the way the beard is done. I'm just going in and really just adding some extra strokes, just to kind of really feather the edge a little bit, and add just a little bit of color and shade to these guys, because right now they're cutouts, and this is what they look like. So I'm going to go in and just add a little bit of color and shade here, just to give them a little bit of life, a little bit of dimension. And then once I've done this with the actual brush tool, I'm going to go in and do the same thing with our eyebrows as we did with the beard, and I'm going to go in and use the smudge tool and just basically define some of those individual hairs that really will make this look a little bit more real and look a little bit like actual eyebrows. So just, I guess, hang out with me as we do that. Okay, now that we've gotten pretty much all the facial hair done, I want to do I think I want to go ahead and do the eyes for this, to finish up this first part. Um, because that's something that'll really drive the life of this image. As with anything, that's what brings, anytime you're doing a portrait or any person or even animal, the eyes really give life to the image. And uh, since I'm sharing this as we're building it, I want to go ahead and do those so it's not eerie to look at as we progress with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go in and I'm going to select the brown from his iris. I made a new layer, and I'm going to go in and get my brush size that I need, make sure it's accurate, and then I'm just going to size it and try and drop it in there, and that's about right. So I'm going to go in, make some opacity adjustments and drop it in there, drop it in there. Okay, so that's the iris size, and what I'm going to do is mask out what I don't need. It's a lot easier to start with a perfect circle and then mask out what you don't need. So I'm just going to go in here and quickly mask that out. Mask this out here. There we go. Yeah. All right. So now that I got that masked out, we're looking good. Okay. So the next thing we're going to want to do is add pupils to our irises. So I'm going to drop the opacity of this a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And what I want to do first is I'm just going to kind of knock out where that pupil will go. I want to kind of mask out that color. That's a little bit small. So this, and I'm doing it this way because this is just kind of a test run, so I can see where that's going to go. I'm going to knock those out just to see if I've got the right positioning on that. Make it darker. That's a little bit small. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Now we're getting about the right size, and that's all we're doing now is getting the size. Now there's something I want to do that, another thing that really adds a lot of life to our eyes when we're doing this is just adding a little bit of depth to that iris, because again, it sits on the most outer part of your eyeball. In fact, it even protrudes a little bit from it, so you always get like a little soft shadow around the outer edge of your iris. And likewise, the crest or the heel of the iris that sticks out of your eye socket the most is a little bit brighter because it catches the most light, because that's what your eye is doing, is capturing light, and so it actually has a little bit of illuminating properties. So now what I'm going to do is another little detail that we can add that actually adds a whole lot of life to our images, and again, a lot of life is in the eyes of our images, so that's why I want to do this now while it's early on. So again, we aren't tired of the image and we're not burned out, and we can add some of the detail we want to add. But what I'm doing here is I'm going in and I'm just basically doing some very, very light strokes using our dodge tool with a very fine line, and I'm just adding those little edges to the iris that you get as it goes around, as it flowers out, kind of. And again, what that does is just adding just a little bit more detail that brings our eyes to life, so that when somebody's looking at the image, it's not uncanny to look at it. It brings them in. It's a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit more welcoming and warm if you can get the eyes right. So if you're going to spend time on something, definitely spend it on the eyes. And now that I've kind of got our irises set correctly, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add the actual black of the pupil, because we want that to be stark black, again, because the iris is the feature of it, and the pupil is just kind of void. But and once we get that pupil there, we add one more thing to it that really brings the eye to life and really makes it pop. So what I'm going to do now is make sure I've got the right size for the pupil. I'm just going to make sure I've got black selected. I'm going to drop it in there once I find the right tool here. I got my brush. Yeah, here's the size. So think about that. Yeah. Oh, I've got to go in and actually erase what I have on my. So yeah, I've actually got on my layer mask. I've got the pupil still there, so I've got to go in and erase that bit of my layer mask. So when I put the pupil on here, it's going to actually show up. So let me go and do that real quick. Just want to go in and erase that. So the pupil's there when I put it on there. And I gotta erase it here too, and then I'm gonna go back and add that bit of a brush. It's that one brush dot that I need to put the pupil on there. So let's go in here, get it the right size. Okay, I think that's right. Is that too big? I don't know. Oh, that looks a little small. Yep, that's too small. So let's go back over here and make that a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, now it's really intense looking. But what we're going to do, we're going to make his eyes a little bit brighter, and we're going to really bring them to life now. Like I said, the eyes are always wet, right? Because we're constantly blinking. And what we can do to really bring these eyes to life, right here that you see is a little highlight that is always on someone's eye. And that is really just like the, it's surprising how much life that adds to an image, just that little pop of a highlight right there, and usually right there. And what you're doing, you're just giving that person an environment that they're living in, actually, because that's the reflection of whatever light it is actually illuminating the room, and you're actually putting it in their eyes. So again, we're just adding more detail to these eyes because that's where the real life of this image is. You can see how, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. See, it really brings that to life. Those are things you just don't pay attention to every day, and it's kind of creepy without the whites of the eyes or the rest of the eye. But we're going to go in and fix that because it looks a little bit odd. We're a little bit off with our outline. So what I want to do is leave his image on in the background while I go in here and adjust our the whites of our eyes here. And to do that, again, because it's sitting in the eye socket, I'm going to go in and just really use the smudge tool and just kind of gently blend that out a little bit. Yeah, right there at the edge. Just kind of softly blend that so it works its way in and around there. Okay, good, good. Yeah, I like how that's kind of working out. They're really bright now, and so we're going to also go in a little while and just blend that out in a little while and adjust just the edges of the eyeball, because again it sits in the eye socket, so we want to make it look round. We've already built out our iris area, so what we want to do now is make it look like the rest of the eye is falling off and dropping deep into that eye socket. So that's what we want to try and do once we've got our eyelids kind of smoothed out. So that's not bad. That's starting to take the right amount of shape. Now the front, I've got something going on with the inside, kind of the tear duct area right here that I need to adjust. So I want to try and I'm gonna shade that in a little bit. I know it's not right now. It's not correct because that's, again, thinking of an eyeball that's in there, that it doesn't extend that big. That's more tear duct that we're seeing. Right here we're pretty close to being correct. So what I want to do now, let's see, let's back out a little bit. Yeah, definitely need to fix that eye. So I'm going to go back in, zoom in a little bit. Yeah. And again, we're not done with the skin because there's a lot of adjustment, a lot of darkening and highlights we need to add around the eyelid and eyelashes and things like that. But tonight we're just going to work on getting these eyes finished. But see right there what I'm talking about, where the eyeball ends, the edge of the eyeball is, and then the tear duct begins. So we want to go in and make that division in there again because we're adding a lot of detail to the eye here. We want it to look proper, and we want to spend our time on it so it works out correctly. And again, it can, if the eyes aren't right, then it can really throw an image off. So we want to focus on that. Okay, so I've got it so light right now, it's kind of hard to tell. There we go. What I'm going to do is soften that a little bit here. Again, as much as I can so it blends out. I don't want to avoid any hard lines right now. Let's touch that a little bit right there. Let's see, keep adjusting it some. Okay, I'm going to go in and just slightly erase this. Just tap it a couple of times to drop it back, because again, that's skin right there, so it's just on the inside of the fold of the eyelid. So yeah, so we're shaping the eyeball now, because it's sitting in the socket, and what we're seeing there is really inside of the eyelid. So we don't want that to be bright white like the rest of our eye is. Nice. So that's, wow. Gosh, when you do eyes properly, it really, really brings an image to life. And again, I still have to add my eyelashes and eyelids, and that's above and below the eye, because the way an eye sits in there is it sits in the eye socket, and it's held in, you know, in what kind of curtains it or protects it is the eyelids. So what I'm going to do now is hit the edges with just our shade tool or our burn tool, and then I'm going to go in and kind of hit the basic shape of what our eyeball is. Because if our eyelids were pulled all the way back, we'd see really kind of maybe a quarter of our eyeball. And I've still got my basic shape or mask for my eye here. And I'm going to use that to select out my the tear duct area. So now what I'm going to do, I'm zooming back and I'm going to zoom in, and then let's see, I'm going to finish drawing, but I'm kind of draw here where the eyeball sits in the eye socket, and when you do that, that basically establishes where your eyelids go, and it gives you a little bit of a foundation to hit some more shadows. You see that dropped in really nicely. Again, I'm just going to very slightly do this for now because I'm just indicating it. I've already hit a lot of detail with the eyes. I just want to right now just indicate where they're going to be. I might have to drop that. There we go. Yeah, that's a little better. And I know, like right over here on this left eye of his, I'm going to have to shade this side of his face a little bit more. I may have to add another layer to over there because it's really flat right now. I need to make it look like it bends back around. I am going to turn that other layer on. You can see where he's really defined there. So I may add that, make that a little bit darker. Next part or our next session. But I feel like we're pretty well along here. I'm really happy with the eyes, really happy with the beard. So I think what we'll do is end it here and then pick it up next time and see if we can get the rest of the face worked out, and maybe the lips and the eyelids, the eyelashes. So we'll try and do the eyelashes and his lips, and then work on shading that other side of his face so we've got the tonality about right for next time. And then after that we'll work on the hair. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed what we've created so far, and thank you for watching.